In solo leveling, Jinwoo was observing the battlefield when a massive gate opened, unleashing monsters carrying banners from the Demon King's tower. They lined up before the Shadow Monarch. Back in the dungeon, the hunters were struggling against the Architect and the Stone Steward. Choi tried to draw the attention of 3 stone statues with his attack, protecting the wounded. Jinchul discovered that physical attacks were ineffective, and Choi soon realized that magic attacks weren't working either. Faced with no other options, Choi attempted to wake Jinwoo by firing a fireball, which only enraged the Architect further. As the Architect prepared to kill Choi, 3 other hunters intervened. Jinchul asked Cha to wake up Jinwoo while they held off the monsters. Meanwhile, Jinwoo remained on the battlefield, confused about why demons were fighting the shadows. He realized there was some internal conflict. Shadow Monarch confronted a figure, accusing him of betrayal and asking him why he betrayed him when they could end the war today. The figure mumbled in an unfamiliar language before the monarch crushed his head. Jinwoo recognized the figure as Demon King Baran. Suddenly, Jinwoo found that he was the Shadow Monarch as he sees the blood and thinks, why didn't he realize this till now? He feels a strange sensation in his chest, which turns out to be his purple heart thumping before he could piece together what was happening. The leader of the Silver Soldiers appears in front of him, and the playback ends. Cha fought the Architect, managing to impress him for the 2nd time that day. Despite her efforts, she was no match for him, and he stabbed her in the shoulder. The other hunters were also struggling, and their only hope was Jinwoo. Cha rushed to wake him up while dodging the Architect's attacks, which continued to amuse him. Seeing a shadow with Cha, he asks what her relationship with Jinwoo is, to which she replies that he is a friend. Seeing this, he gives her an opportunity to live to see the birth of a monarch, but he is still dead set on killing others. Just then, Jinwoo intervened with a powerful punch that cracked the Architect's face and sent him crashing to the ground. The Architect was stunned, unable to comprehend why Jinwoo was there instead of the Shadow Monarch, and how Jinwoo could still regain his consciousness, the Black Heart. Jinwoo still didn't get the answers he wanted about the system, so he demanded more information. The Architect responded only with curses against the Shadow Monarch. Frustrated, Jinwoo threatened to kill him, but the Architect was confident Jinwoo wouldn't follow through, warning that doing so would make him an E-class again. As the Architect tried to use the system, his access was denied. Jinwoo laughed and then sliced him into pieces. As the Architect was dying, he delivered a cryptic prophecy. When the pillar of fire that holds the heavens is raised, an inevitable death will approach you. Jinwoo simply replied, as you wish, showing his unshakable confidence. The elite hunters teams exit from the dungeon looking all busted up. The hunters of the Bravery Guild look shocked to see the elite hunters team in that state, thinking what happened to them in a C-rank dungeon. That's when Jinchul asks them to help carry the deceased. They couldn't believe what they were hearing, but it wasn't the time for questioning. Jinwoo is the last to walk out, lost in thought about the Architect and the mountain of questions swirling in his head. Jinchul, trying to make sense of the chaos, tells Jinwoo about the 20 casualties and asks why he decided to tackle the dungeon solo. Then, hitting him with the big question, how did he know there was a double dungeon in the gate? Jinwoo responded, the dungeon summoned me here. At first, Jinchul thought Jinwoo was pulling his leg, but with all the bodies around, he quickly realized Jinwoo wasn't joking. As Jinwoo starts to walk away, Cha asks if he's okay. He says he's fine, but then he passes out right after. The big day had arrived. The preparation to block the S-rank gate was in full swing. Trucks rolled in, dumping a mountain of mana crystals for Yuri Orlov to work his magic and cast a barrier around the gate. As Yuri was explaining his plan to an on-site agent, he suddenly got a feeling that something was not right. The agent, sensing the tension, asked if anything was wrong. Yuri replied that the magic circle was fine, but it felt like someone was lurking nearby. The agent scoffed, saying no sane person would be hanging out this close to the gate, especially with a dungeon break happening tomorrow. Yuri's replied, I didn't say it was a human. Meanwhile, Song Il-hwan was watching all this from a rooftop. He was amused by Yuri's senses, but knowing the source of his powers, he knew it was to be expected. He looked to the gate and commented, it's finally happening. Everything is flowing according to the predetermined tragedy. Down on the streets, the military was out in full force with heavy machinery, ready for anything. One of the S-rank hunters with tattoos questioned the point of all this firepower, knowing full well that modern weapons were useless against the monsters. Another S-rank explained they were the backup plan. If Yuri Orlov's barrier failed, the military would buy some time for everyone to escape. As Yuri prepared to close the gate, he popped open a bottle of alcohol to steady his nerves. The agent screams, the gate is opening! After Jinwoo's grueling battle with the Architect, he's so wiped out that he ends up in the hospital. When Jinho visits, he bursts into tears upon seeing Jinwoo awake. Jinwoo, a bit puzzled, asks why Jinho is crying. Jinho sobs, you were asleep for 3 days and wouldn't wake up. I thought you were dead this time. Hearing he's he's been out for 3 days, Jinwoo asks about the Japan raid. Jinho's face falls as he recounts the devastating news. He explains how Yuri Orlov couldn't hold the line against the monsters. The gate unleashed a series of catastrophic events. First, a giant A-rank dungeon boss appeared, causing massive chaos. But things got even worse when an enormous, colossal figure emerged from the dungeon, tearing through the front lines and obliterating Tokyo in its wake. The city is left in ruins. Jinho's dad wakes up from a nap, groaning as he asks the man beside him how long he's been out. The man replies, 23 hours and 46 minutes. He adds that if Jinho doesn't wake up within the next 14 minutes, he'll be taken to the hospital. Then he informs Mr. Yu that he has 2 news stories to share. First, he tells Mr. Yu about Jinwoo's mom. She's the first and only person in the world to wake up from eternal slumber. Mr. Yu, catching on, asks if this means Jinwoo might have the cure for eternal slumber. Mr. Yu asks, all right, what's the second thing? The servant informs him that the young lady has arrived, as a beautiful woman walks past the door and asks Mr. Yu how long he's been like this. Meanwhile, Jinwoo is glued to the highlights of the Tokyo raid, listening to the grim report that Tokyo has turned into a literal hellscape. With the destruction so severe, Jinwoo fears a repeat of the Jeju Island incident if the monsters aren't contained. He decides to go to Tokyo, but Gina, terrified, pleads with him not to go. Seeing Gina's distress, Jinwoo reassures her that he'll take things slow for now. He steps outside and sits on a bench, summoning Baru to check on Gina. Baru reports that she's been fine, but Jinwoo realizes she's developed a trauma. After all, she'd never once stopped him from going on raids in the past 4 years. Jinwoo was on his way home when a car suddenly pulled up in front of him. The next thing he knows, Yu Myung-han, the CEO of Yujin Construction, is greeting him, introducing himself with a blank check and sliding it across the table. Myung-han makes it clear that he's not some arrogant guy who thinks money can solve everything, but asks Jinwoo to see the check as a token of his sincerity. Jinwoo immediately realizes that whatever Myung-han is about to say must be confidential and wonders what's on his mind. Myung-han then drops a bombshell as he tells Jinwoo that he's suffering from the same illness that Jinwoo's mother had. Jinwoo is stunned and asks how he knows this. Myung-han reveals that besides him, only 3 people in the world know about his condition. Myung-han goes on to explain that while searching for a cure, he discovered that the only person to ever wake up from eternal slumber just so happens to be Jinwoo's mother. He suggests that this can't be a mere coincidence and asks Jinwoo for his help, promising that he'll never forget Jinwoo's kindness if he agrees. Jinwoo, now faced with a tough decision, thinks to himself that today he'll have to make a choice. Follow for more.